In this module, we're going to talk about one of the hardest parts of loving someone with a gambling addiction: the lying, the secrecy, and the manipulation. It's confusing and painful, and sometimes it makes you question your own reality. Let's be clear from the beginning: lying is a core feature of gambling addiction, not because the person is evil or broken, but because the addiction depends on secrecy to survive. Unfortunately, we have to accept that lying is a part of this. It's a core feature, not necessarily a character flaw. Gamblers don't lie because the person is evil or broken, but because the addiction depends on secrecy to survive. Without the lies, the addiction would be exposed and potentially stopped. So there's a psychological contradiction, because when someone's addicted to gambling, they often feel two things simultaneously: deep shame about what they're doing and a powerful compulsion to keep doing it anyway. Lying becomes the only way to manage this contradiction. It's also a protection mechanism for them. They lie to protect the addiction from being stopped, but they also lie to protect themselves from facing the full reality of their behavior, and also to protect you from seeing how bad it really is. The shame actually drives the secrecy. The more ashamed they feel, the more they hide. And the more they hide, the more they gamble to escape the shame. It creates a cycle of deception that becomes increasingly difficult to break. Just remember, the lies aren't personal, they're not about you. They're about protecting the addiction from being stopped and protecting themselves from the overwhelming shame of facing what's really happening. If you're ever wondering where the money went or how they keep funding the gambling, it's usually not as simple as draining a savings account. Most problem gamblers become experts in financial misdirection. And here's what that looks like in the real world. It might be payday loans because they're easy to get and even easier to hide because typically there's no credit check. Many take out multiple at once to pay off gambling debts or even chase losses. Then you have cash advance apps like Earnin, Dave, or Bridget to borrow from their next paycheck. You might not see it on a bank statement and it comes out automatically. Then we have credit card cycling, shuffling balances between cards or maxing one out and then opening another to cover bills. And we're all familiar with Venmo and Cash App and gift cards, where they're digital wallets and cash cards that become ways to move or store money without scrutiny. Some people use crypto accounts. They might use platforms like Coinbase not just to invest, but to gamble directly on crypto casinos or mask transfers. Some people will use prepaid debit cards that you don't know about. They use them to load gambling deposits without it hitting a primary account. And then, of course, the fake budgets or excuses. This was for bills. I had to fix the car. That charge isn't even mine. All ways to hide losses. Another big one is splitting up paychecks into secret bank accounts because you typically don't see that person's pay stub every time they get paid. I cannot emphasize this enough. Every member of your family should pay for additional credit monitoring and lock their gambler's credit so they can't pull out any loans. You may ask yourself, why would you need to lock your own credit? They will take out loans in your name. And I know this because I did it. If you're noticing constant financial stress, missing money, or strange gaps in explanations, those are red flags. For me, I ran a small business and I'd say I had no money because of a bad month, and I'd also take out business loans that nobody knew about. In reality, I had some of my best years ever in the height of my gambling, but I was living paycheck to paycheck, and it was the lie that I told myself. In terms of financial deception, the excuses are endless. Some of the common ones that you'll hear are: this was for bills, it's not my charge, I had to fix the car, work hasn't paid me yet. So, some of the red flags to watch for are things like constant financial stress despite stable income, missing money with vague explanations, changing stories about where money went, or new unexpected financial emergencies. I actually ran a small business and I'd tell my family I had no money because of a bad month, and then I'd take out business loans to cover expenses, which also got used for gambling. The reality is that I was having some of my best years ever, and I was making good money, but gambling it all away. The bad business was just my cover. Business owners, freelancers, or commission based workers have a built in excuse for irregular income. This makes their gambling easier to hide, as they can blame market downturns, slow client payments, or business investments that didn't pan out. For families, the financial deception is often more elaborate than simply missing money. It's a crafted narrative designed to be just believable enough to avoid confrontation while hiding the gambling activity that's really draining resources. Let's talk about gaslighting. Gaslighting is when someone makes you question your perception of reality, either directly with something like, I didn't do that, or indirectly, like, you're overreacting, you're always so paranoid. A gambler may gaslight you in subtle or overt ways. Remember, we are elite liars. We could convince you the sky isn't blue just by denying it. You know the guys who run three-card monties on the streets in big cities? We are those people. We'd be the best politicians ever. We can spin like no other because we've already thought about the scenario, because we actually feel terrible about it. But we can't tell the truth, or that would expose us to our fears of being disowned or kicked out of the house, etc. And we're generally quick on our feet too, because on that drive back from the casino, we've already planned what we'll say. Or when we're up gambling at 3 a.m. and you're fast asleep next to us, we're already thinking about what we're going to say in the morning. We'll deny the obvious. Even when you've seen betting apps or missing money, they'll insist you're wrong. We flip the script. Why are you checking my bank account? Or you just don't trust me. And the worst is emotional guilt tripping. You think I'm a bad person. I already feel horrible. Why are you making it worse? This behavior doesn't mean they don't care about you. It just means they're trying to protect the addiction, avoid shame, and avoid consequences, even if it means bending your sense of reality. Remember, gambling thrives in isolation, and most gamblers will go to extreme lengths to keep it private. They'll hide about how often they bet and say things like, I only bet on the big games, when they're really betting constantly. They'll lie about how much they've lost. My story was that I would either say I'm up or down $50, depending on when they ask, no matter what, because that's small enough to avoid questions. If you ask them how much they've borrowed before, they'll probably say they've never borrowed from anyone. If you ask them who they owe, they'll probably say nobody. And if they think that you're on to them, they'll give you a breadcrumb and say, oh, I do owe one friend actually. For example, after my family knew everything, I still tried to hide some of it. I told my family about some of the loans I took out, but I left 3 of them off. I knew they were out there, I just didn't want them to know. And they found out anyways, and it just made the problem worse. They'll lie about accounts that they've opened. So, again, for you, it's always trust but verify. If you know that they used to bank with US Bank, go with them or call the bank to get proof. Make them email their employer to confirm their check is not being split up, or make them show you a pay statement. And they'll even lie about how close they are to a crisis. And you'll pick up on it. There will be little lies or a change in routine, irritability. Those are all little signs of a relapse or a big crisis getting ready to happen. They're often called addiction adjacent behaviors. Because remember, they might be gambling on breaks at work, late at night, or while sitting right next to you, all while pretending everything's fine. I used to work in finance, and I'd be gambling while telling someone in a meeting about how their 401k was performing. And also remember, it's not because they want to hurt you. It's because they've lost control, and hiding it is the only way to keep functioning, or at least pretending to be able to function. Being lied to, manipulated, and gaslit by someone that you love creates a lot of confusion, like, why are they acting so normal if things are this bad? It brings on self doubt. Maybe I'm just being dramatic. Even anger. How could they do this to me? And then, of course, emotional exhaustion, because you don't know what's true anymore. This is trauma. It's not just stress, it's a form of emotional abuse, even if unintentional. It's a play. The lie is intentional to hide and deceive. The hurt is not. I genuinely believed that I'd gamble my way out of it, and if they never found out about the lies, then it wouldn't hurt. Kind of like the whole if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a noise? Understanding that this is a symptom of addiction, not just a personality flaw, can help you respond with clearer boundaries instead of internalized blame. Some people will actually argue that gambling isn't the addiction, it's actually lying. For most addicts, lying is their first addiction. They'll lie about anything. I remember lying about what I'd eat for lunch for no other reason than I didn't want to hear about how I need to eat because I was losing weight or I need to be healthy. Most gamblers live in denial. Deny, deny until you die. They genuinely believe they can stop whenever they want. They truly think the next win will fix everything. And if they miraculously get that win, then they'll justify that to saying, well, I'm back to even so I can bet again. I've figured it out now. That's why they lie, not just to you, but to themselves. They believe, I'll win it back and fix it before anyone notices. Or I'm not that bad, I'm still paying the bills. For example, I was making 6 figures and was living paycheck to paycheck. Or I can quit when I want to, I'm just not ready yet. The self deception makes it nearly impossible for them to be honest with others. They don't see the full damage yet until it's too late. Denial is one of the most powerful defense mechanisms in addiction, and gambling might be the addiction where denial is strongest. Because unlike substances, there's no substance to point to. No needle, no bottle, no track marks, just a phone. But here's what denial really means. If I admit this is a problem, I'll have to give up the only thing that makes me feel okay. They're not just protecting the addiction, they're protecting their coping mechanism, the one thing that gives them a sense of hope, control, or escape. Gambling addiction rarely exists alone. One of the most important things to understand is this: gambling addiction is often not the only issue. It frequently co occurs with underlying mental health conditions that go untreated or unrecognized. According to multiple studies, up to 75% of people with gambling disorder also have a co occurring mental health diagnosis. 49% experience a mood disorder like depression or bipolar disorder. 41% struggle with anxiety disorders. 60% have a substance use disorder at some point in their lifetime. Suicidal ideation is alarmingly common. Gambling addiction has one of the highest suicide attempt rates of all addictions. For me, I don't know what came first, gambling or depression. What I know is that when I was gambling, it made my depression worse, and I was self medicating without knowing it. It didn't hit me until I went to treatment that gambling actually made me feel physically better. And of course, that was only during the bet. After it lost, I'd feel guilt and shame. Put it this way, gambling was the band aid for the cut of depression that I didn't even know existed. So here's what this means for families: the gambling is often just the surface problem. What's underneath could be depression, trauma, anxiety, ADHD, or unresolved grief, and your loved one may not even realize it. Many people are gambling to self medicate pain they can't name yet. That doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains the urgency and emotional volatility behind it. This has been a heavy module, but it's one of the most important. If you've felt lied to, manipulated, or made to feel crazy, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. This is the pattern. But now you can name it. You can stop internalizing it, and you can see it for what it is: a symptom of addiction, not a reflection of your worth. In the next module, we'll begin to shift the focus from what's happening to you to what you can do about it, how to respond without enabling, and how to protect your peace while staying grounded in reality. You're not powerless and you're not alone. Remember, gambling addiction isn't just a financial problem. It's a relational one because it fractures trust, warps communication, and pulls people apart. But it can be understood, and once it's understood, it can be confronted. You've already done one of the hardest things. You're facing the truth. Let's keep going.